Welcome on in, everybody. So, there is a new patch coming on the 2nd of August. It is one of the incremental updates, and there are a few balance changes coming with this update, as well as some changes to the game. The first big one that we're going to talk about is the performance changes. They have implemented a performance change to the way shatters are loaded in the game client. It is expected to enhance the overall gameplay experience by reducing instances of frame hitching and stuttering. I get a lot of these issues in areas like Kep and Helio when I'm playing. It is important to note that there will be a noticeable impact on game boot time as a trade-off, so loading your game up, at least that first initial loading screen, is going to take a little bit more time, depending on whether you have an SSD or HD. But yeah, this is a change that I really want to get in and test, and I want to see, especially the areas where I personally struggle with stutters. On top of it, they also fixed a number of server crashes related to the lag detected error. I know that there were a few people having this issue with the game, so this is a fix that I hope goes through without a hitch as well. And then taking a look at combat, they made some changes to combat, some pretty big balance changes. So the blunderbuss splitting grenade can no longer be canceled early, and that is that blunderbuss big one-shot combo where you use splitting grenade to basically cancel into your next light attack shot. I know there is people that use a macro for this particular ability, so I do like this change quite a lot. The next big change, they are increasing the amount of health players gain from the first 150 levels in Constitution. This is an interesting change. The idea behind this one, according to Amazon, was they wanted to make the time to kill a little bit lower. So all the squishy builds right now are going to gain a little bit more health. Of course, the more points you have in Constitution, the more you're going to get from this new health bonus. I'm really curious to see where Constitution is going to be sitting at for everybody post this update, so this will be one that I definitely have my eyes on, especially since I myself have started playing a 50 con build recently. They swapped the 150 dex and the 350 dex attribute threshold bonuses with each other. The 150 dex attribute bonus used to be a flat 10 reduced cost on your roll, and now you have to put in 300 dex to get that. So a ton of builds that had access to that passive are no longer going to have access to it. Instead, they're going to gain that crit every 6 seconds guaranteed on roll that we have at the 300 dex passive coming into this patch. So this one is interesting. I'm really curious to see how this will impact gameplay overall. There are a ton of builds that like to take advantage of that passive, so yeah, stamina sustain in general across the board is kind of taking a hit here for a huge variety of builds. And then the Detonate Heart Rune is no longer able to deal critical damage. This change is interesting. I know the Detonate is the hardest hitting burst ultimate right now, so taking the ability to stack that burst on top of something else, or at least lowering that ability by taking away that critical damage, is a step in the right direction maybe to making this feel a little bit more balanced. I know for me personally, I see most people running Detonate or Stoneform in PvP, so yeah, this is one ultimate that I think they did have to take a little bit of a look at. Moving on to Spear's Cyclone slow effect is now going to be 30% instead of 50%. This is a huge nerf to Cyclone, but honestly, a 50% snare in this game is super brutal. When you pack that snare on top of the fact that you just got hit by a melee attack so you can't sprint, it ends up being more like a 60 or 70% snare. So taking it down to 30, I think will make Spear feel a little bit easier to actually get away from. I think at the moment, Spear can feel very oppressive to try to escape from. And then finally, they limited the number of targets that could be hit by Spear's Leeching Cyclone perk in a single use to 3. This is a big nerf to how effective Leeching Cyclone will be in larger clump fights, because you will not get that huge heal that you used to get. And last but not least, they reworked Sword's Achilles heel passive to be a rend instead of a slow, again making it a little bit easier to escape from another one of the game's stickiest weapons, Sword and Shield. So the Sword and Shield Spear build that we see right now, arguably the best build in the game coming into this patch, is taking quite a few nerfs here. In the PvE side of things, they fixed an issue that made legendary fish far easier to catch than intended. They introduced hotkeys for gear set storage. This is huge. I mean, this is great for everybody, but us PvP guys, the fact that you can put your PvP set, your PvE sets on hotkey, there is literally no excuse to not have your PvP gear on while you're flagged up. And yeah, this is such a nice change for PvP. I don't know what to say. This is the icing on the cake for the gear set change and what that added to open world PvP. And the artisan fishing pole is now usable. Hooray for me, because this is basically the best fishing pole that I can have on my Iron Man right now. Anybody who didn't finish the Seasons 1 pass and couldn't purchase that last gear set slot will be able to purchase it now as well. Moving down to game modes, they increase the personal score you get for flipping an outpost by 40% in Outpost Rush. This is a big increase, and I believe they had increased it before this, so is this a buff on top of the old buff? You're going to get a lot of points for flipping an outpost. I kind of like this because it's more incentive to actually play the objective in Outpost Rush, and I feel like even with the changes we got last patch, a lot of people are still just clump fighting over relatively no objective or in front of somebody's spawn or something like that. So yeah, hopefully this makes Outpost Rush a little bit more of a competitive game mode where people actually try to play the objective. 3v3 arenas, the Brimstone Sand Arena is now activated and part of the 2-week rotation. So you'll be playing on the new arena for the next couple weeks. And that is all of the big changes. There are, of course, a few fixes in here. I will link this, this page for you guys if you want to come and just read through all of these on your own. I really like some of the balance changes. I am curious to test out some of the other ones, but for me personally, the biggest thing about this patch is having gear sets on hotkeys. This is going to be massive for anybody that likes to open world PvP. As always, I'd love to hear what you guys think about all these changes and whether you think they'll be good or bad for the game. If you guys enjoyed this video, feel free to hit that like and subscribe button. Of course, you can catch me on Twitch. You can find written guides to tons of builds on my website, pvpnewworld.com. And if you have an awesome clip you want to see in the New World Top 5, you can send that to Kristofer at pvpnewworld.com. A big thank you to our sponsor, ExpressVPN, for sponsoring the show. They can help keep you safe on the internet. And you can get a deal on your first purchase with them thanks to the link down below. And last but not least, a massive thank you to all of my patrons on Patreon. Whether you're supporting now, whether you've supported in the past, thank you everybody so much for keeping the show going. And thank you guys so much just for tuning in and watching. Hope you're looking forward to some more. Have a good night, everybody, and I'll see you next time.